welcome to yet another exciting podcast with the NCDOE. I am your host, Tsholofelo. We have the National Teaching Award winner, a unionist of note, inclusive education activist, and the principal of Retlameleng who has recently traveled to China and will take us through his journey. Mr Lebogang Diutlwileng, welcome.
Thank you, Tsolo. Thank you so much.
Can you kindly please just take us through your journey to China?
Thank you for this opportunity and then to be on your show. It's a privilege.
Thank you.
Maybe let me just take you back a little bit before I went to China. How did it come about? I am, like you said in your intro, a NTA National Teaching Award winner in the category Excellent in Special Needs Leadership. So I obtained position 1 nationally in 2003 after the rounds of provincial competitions and prior to that of the district competitions. So this year the Basic Education Department chose me together with the others to represent the country in China at the management seminars. And so we left the country on the 6th of August, and then the seminars then started on the 7th. So it was a life-changing experience. It's an experience that I would not exchange for anything. So it was my first time in China, and then so everything was exciting, everything was new, but most importantly, I think what we went there for, was achieved. I came back a learned person. Yes. I have got a certificate to prove for it. And a changed person. And a better teacher, I want to believe.
Okay, I heard you say we traveled to China. Were you the only person in Kimberley that went to China, or from the special schools that we have around in the province specifically that went to China?
In the Northern Cape on the 6th, it was only me.
Okay.
The other 3 candidates were from KZN. 1 was from Mpumalanga. But before we went, there's another teacher, she is in ECD, who comes from our province, who also went. She came second in the NTAs nationally in the ECD. But this time around, I was the only one in the Northern Cape and the only one in the country in the category of inclusive education.
Interesting, much I must say. It must have been a beautiful journey.
It was.
Taking into consideration the level of education in China as compared to that of us in South Africa, how is it, particularly the vocational area that side?
Well, the level of education in China is quite high. It's quite high. I think we, as the country, we can only learn from their journey and then start to take one step at a time. And then I believe that one day we will arrive. They have traveled this journey quite, a long time. Look, what fascinated me about their schools is that they are of good quality, they are resourced, and they are professionally run. Their public schools are better than our private schools. Oh. Yes, okay. Yes. They are well resourced. Technology is world class, and issues of vocational. Every school has got a vocational program.
Yes.
So what China does is that they don't believe that educating children should be a generic process. Their philosophy is that each and every child has got their own strengths, their own abilities, and their own limitations. So in a school environment and as part of the curriculum, they make provision for variety.
Okay.
So there are children who are strong academically, and then there are children that would not be gifted academically. So the areas of vocation is then brought in, to balance, so that all children in the same school should be, on the same pedestal, Yeah, so, some of the schools where we went to, because the seminars were held at the university, Zhejiang Normal University, and then, but we would also be taken to on-site visits,
Okay.
So there are plantations, the schools, they've got gardens, and that is where they really, they inculcate their skills, and they develop children in those kind of skills. There are other schools that, they are big in sports.
Yes.
So sports is also part of the curriculum. Yes.
Okay.
Arts and culture is part of the curriculum. Just to ensure that they accommodate the learners that are not strong academically.
Okay. That's quite a lot. I want to believe if and only if our Department of Education nationally would take from what China is doing, we would be a better country.
Yeah, look, we have got a blueprint already. We've got our National Development Plan 2030, which envisages, a more comprehensive education system,
Yes.
which takes into account your academics, your vocational, and your skills. So the blueprint is there. And then in the inclusive education, kind of philosophy, there is also a blueprint. There is what we call the
No, it's fine.
there is SIAS, né?
Okay.
And then in fact SIAS is a policy that should be applicable in all schools.
Okay.
It is screening, identification, assessment, and support. So what it does is that you look at the learners, you screen the learners. Every learner who comes into the school,
Yes.
you screen them. You identify their strong points. You identify their weaknesses. And then that particular school is supposed to design programs that are going to accommodate the strengths and the weaknesses of this learner.
Okay.
So like I'm saying, the policies are already there. What we need now is a resourcing.
And implementation.
Yes, we need to resource and implement.
Okay.
So if we resource the schools and we train the teachers, because the teachers are the implementers of the policy. So if you train them and you resource them, then we are on the right direction.
SIAS, right?
Yes, yes.
Clearly, we learn everything. It's something that I was not aware of, that I did not know.
Yes, SIAS is part of a bigger policy called White Paper 6.
Okay.
Yeah, White Paper 6 is the one that introduced inclusive education.
Okay.
Yeah, remember in the past, you would have your what we call now mainstream schools, where we say normal children goes to.
Yes.
And then you'll have special schools somewhere where you take learners who live with a different kind of disabilities. But now what government wanted to do was that all children, irrespective of their abilities and disabilities, must share the same school.
Okay.
That is where the concept of inclusive education comes from.
Okay.
Because remember, like now here we are in Retlameleng. There are children who come from Upington. Now, if the parents don't have the money to pay for accommodation of their children here in Kimberley, then these children will be deprived of education. So, what inclusive education, what it wants to do is that a child must just walk 10 steps from their house and go into a school, whether they are blind or deaf. That school has got a responsibility to accommodate the learner with their limitations. So that is actually the genesis of inclusive education. So inside the White Paper 6 policy, then it gives birth to SEAS. SEAS is what will implement, what helps the schools to implement the philosophy of White Paper 6.
What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Do you think, or how do you think that your trip to China is going to benefit Retlameleng, specifically since you're the principal of Retlameleng, or the special schools around the province?
Number one, we must advocate for resourcing of schools, because clearly we have identified where the loopholes are.
Okay.
Like we said, we know the blueprint is there, we know the thought is there, but the challenge is the resources. So we're going to advocate for resources, and we're going to come together as the special schools, and so that we can draw up a standard to say, if a school is a school for blind and deaf learners, what is it that this school must look like?
Okay.
You know, what are the ideal resources in the school? And then we draw up a business plan, and then you submit it to the department. Similarly, with all the other schools, there are schools that caters for children who are, MIDs, SIDs, PIDs, profound intellectual disability, mild intellectual disability, and severe intellectual disability. So we must draft a program or a blueprint that says, how should this school look like to maximize teaching and learning? And then we draft a business plan, we submit it to the Department of Education. We say, for our school to succeed, this is what we want.
Okay. This is a clarion call to the NCDOE. Resources and implementation.
Resources, training of teachers, and implementation.
Okay.
So I think that will assist us. And maybe I must add, because in the main, the trip to China was actually more comprehensive.
Okay.
In China, they don't have like they have at a very small scale what we have here as special schools and mainstream schools.
Okay.
They try their best for a school to accommodate
all the
learners, irrespective of ability and disability.
Okay.
So even more than mobilizing the special schools, what we should be doing is to mobilize all the schools to say, how do we ensure that a learner in Appington can go to Babalelo High School even though they are blind, and they still succeed?
Okay.
How do we do that? So we need, that is the conversation that we need to have. Secondly, which I have picked up in China, which I think is very, very key, is that learners that moves from primary school, they don't just go to any other high school. There is a specific high school which is aligned to this particular primary school.
Okay.
Yes, meaning that if the learner was doing ballet in primary school, they will do ballet in high school. There is no distortion.
Okay.
So there is no disruption in terms of the learner's progress, and there is continuity.
Okay.
So what we need to do also is that in the schools that are in the same area, you then mobilize the primary schools and the high schools. And you say, how can we share resources? How can we cooperate? So that the children do not lose what they have learned when they progress from one level, to the other.
Okay.
So I think that is key. Because what China is also big at is values,
okay,
culture, and morality.
Okay.
So that is key. That there should be a smooth transition in terms of inculcating all those values and moralities, throughout their schooling system. That's why I said to you earlier that it's a big task.
It is.
It's a big task.
It's a really big task.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've just bombarded me with a whole lot of information that I did not even know of.
Yes.
Moving to our other question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the inclusive education in China differs from that of us in South Africa?
I think they are doing it correctly.
Okay.
They are doing it correctly, and then in a sense that, when I was looking at the policies of China and South Africa, they are the same.
Really?
Yes. There's no fundamental difference. Yeah, there's no fundamental difference. Hence I said that in China they are implementing the policies. I think that is where the difference is.
Okay.
Yes, they are implementing the policies because the policy says there's a school. It doesn't say a special school.
A school.
A school. It talks about a school. It talks about a learner. You see? So now in South Africa, we talk about mainstream schools. We talk about special schools. That is where the fundamental difference. Yes.
Okay.
So Tina, there is some kind of a separation.
Okay.
Because the constitution of the country, section 29, it talks about giving all children equal opportunities.
Yes.
You see? So now, why is it equal opportunity when my brother is blind and I'm not blind, but we are not going to the same school? How is it equal opportunity? They go to a mainstream school, I go to a special school. So there should be some sort of balance.
Equality.
There should be equality. Because it is prescriptive in the constitution. Okay. And we have to find a way as the country, to make look the schools, the mainstream schools, and we understand that they were built, most of them, in apartheid. There was generally segregation. People were just separated generally.
Okay.
So we understand that it will take a lot of money and resources to build trams. Because if you say a school must be inclusive, you are saying that a child who's riding on a wheelchair must be able to access a geography class, even if it is on the second floor.
Yes.
You see? Yes. So we are also not naive. We understand the dynamics and the challenges. Yes. But we are saying that is the direction that China is actually moving into. In fact, that is what they are doing, and that is the direction that we ought to be moving into.
Okay. When you spoke about yourself being a unionist, we knew what we were talking about. Now the Magabani is getting out, digging deeper into these things, going to the constitution and stuff. Yeah. It's a nice one, I must say that. Maybe I should put this question maybe differently. Are there special school, how do I put it? Special mechanisms in place that are that side, like in that side of the world in China? Are Are there special mechanisms in place?
For access of learners.
Yes.
The schooling system there is, they rely on the bigger vision of the country. When you go through the documents of China, you will not be confused.
Okay.
Yeah, you will not be confused. You can read any document, they speak the same thing. All of them. You know, there is synergy.
Okay.
So when it comes to education, what China is doing is that they resolve at the national level on the values that they want to inculcate in the entire people of China. And then they assign education.
Okay.
To say that education must be the driver of whatever is it that they want
To
achieve. You see? So they resource intentionally education to be the driver of every decision that they take, you know. And that's why they take education so serious. You know, in your introduction, you spoke about apex priority. You know, education should be an apex priority. You can't have it any other way. You know. So what they do also in China is that they make sure that parents are part of the education system. You know, so that there is no distortion.
Okay.
I said earlier on that there should be a smooth transition from one level to another, including the homes.
Okay.
You know, yeah. So for me, what I've picked up that is a very key strategy that they are using. They are involving the parents. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the back of our minds, we must always have that when we speak inclusivity, we must speak equality. At any given time.
At any
given
yeah.
time. Okay, there's no doubt, Diutlwileng, in your enthusiasm, Kaho leader in special schools. I mean, it's evident you went to China for that. You won the best award in that. There's no doubt in that.
Yes.
How do you do it? How do you keep going? I mean, it's been years. You've been doing this for the longest of time now. How do you do it? How do you keep the momentum?
More than anything, I'm an education activist.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So when I look at society, immediately what you see in terms of education is that children who are not academically gifted, they are excluded.
Always.
They are excluded. You can go anywhere in the country. Children who are not academically gifted, they are excluded.
Okay.
Children will be picked up at a mainstream school that they are not academically gifted, and they will be shifted to a special school.
Okay.
Now, a special school is not designed to accommodate learners who are not academically gifted. You know, the school where the child is, I spoke about SEAS, screening, identification, assessment, and support. Not and move, and support. Yes. So you screen the child, you identify that the child has a problem.
Yes.
Academically, they have a problem. You don't move them, you support them.
Acknowledge that there's a problem.
You acknowledge that there's a problem.
It needs to be addressed.
And you support the children. So for me, that is my passion.
Okay.
And here in Retlameleng, if we don't achieve anything at all, I would like to see this school having vocational programs, having skills programs, having technical programs.
Okay.
So that even those learners who are not academically gifted, they may not leave the school with a matric certificate, but they must leave the school with a skill that they will be able to use to maintain themselves, to make a living for themselves. including the children who will be fortunate to leave the school with a matric certificate. They must also have a skill more than a certificate. Because you and I know that having a matric certificate at this time and age is not, it doesn't help you in any way, to make a living for yourself. So I would like all schools to be like that. That is where my passion is. If a child is good in soccer, let the child make a living through soccer. But it is the school that must capacitate the learner.
Okay, the school must see to it.
The school must see to it. I said to you, in China, sports is part of the curriculum. It's not just, in other schools, yes, but the schools have got a discretion to build up their own curriculum.
Okay.
So there's a national subjects that they use, that they do, Chinese, mathematics, social sciences, technology, but when they look at their own context, they can develop certain programs that are part of the curriculum. We went to a university in Shanghai. It's called Shanghai University of Sports.
Okay.
You get it? Those children, they come from high schools and primary schools where sports was not an extramural curriculum. A sport was part and parcel of the curriculum.
Moving from school, going to the university, you don't lose it anywhere in between. You carry it to the next step. You carry it again to the university.
Yes. There is seamless transition. From primary school, high school to tertiary.
Speaking about sports, I want to believe back in the years we used to have Wednesday. Wednesday was dedicated to your sports day, where you'd have maybe your school coming out 1 o'clock, it's time, it's chilling now, we're going to play soccer or we're going to play netball. Now, do you think, had we adopted that as maybe the education system in South Africa, that if we had adopted that part and kept it and maybe included it in the curriculum, we would have been far by now?
We would have been very far. I think I don't know whether I'm using the right word, our obsession is theoretical academics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is true.
We have moved, there was woodwork, there was home economics, there was needle work, we have removed those things. We have replaced them with theoretical academic subjects. That's why I said to you that we take it for granted that all the learners are academically gifted, which is very wrong. It's very wrong.
Yeah.
So like you are saying, if the schools and the Department of Education can agree that at least one Wednesday, for an example, one day in a week, let us shorten the periods and then let us reintroduce sports as an integral part of the schooling program, so that children who love sports can also have an opportunity, to participate in the things that they love. Yes. One of the things in China, one of the captions is that learners and teachers must enjoy being at school.
It's not one-sided.
It's not one-sided.
Both
learners and teachers must enjoy being at school. Now, you have to create an environment where both learners and teachers will enjoy themselves at school. Conducive environment, and you have to, it can't be a top-down approach. It must be a bottom-up approach. You must have identified what is it that makes these people happy, what makes them productive, what makes them wake up in the morning. You must have identified, from each and every one of them, and you make sure that those things are part of the schooling environment.
This is now advocacy.
This is advocacy.
Advocacy.
This is advocacy.
Operational.
And there's nothing wrong to extend the school hours.
Yeah.
We knock off at 2:30. I think the learners knock off at 2. There's nothing wrong to say, let's extend the school hours to 3:30. And then the parents should be on board.
Yes.
To say 2 o'clock we are done with your timetable ATP issues. And then for an hour or an hour and a half, we deal now with issues of sports, arts, culture, skills programs, vocational programs, if they are not part of the curriculum. So we must insist.
Okay.
Even if we in the immediate, we don't win the battle for those to be part of the curriculum. But at least let's then think outside of the box.
Okay.
To say, let's keep what we have, but let's extend the day.
All right.
And then we include others that we don't have.
Okay. Maybe two steps back.
Yes.
You said ATPs. What is ATP? Assessment task.
Yeah. It's an annual teaching plan.
We have assessment task.
Yeah, remember we have got policies that governs each and every subject.
Okay.
To say this subject for the first quarter you must teach this much.
Okay.
Second quarter you must teach this much. They also have assessment programs.
Okay.
Yeah. So after, in fact, during COVID, those policies were shrunk a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they were shrunk into ATPs. So
Okay.
ATPs are still policies of teaching and assessment. They come from your main policy that you know.
Okay.
Yes.
Perhaps our last question before we close off this interview / podcast.
Yes.
You've spoken about the parents of the children in China being on board with everything that they do. They hands-on, they want to know, and they're interested in what their children do in schools. What can we do to emulate those strategies that are used maybe in China? Or from what you have learned the 2 weeks that you were there, what can we do to emulate those strategies that are used in China and then implement them maybe in South Africa to help a disabled child, a child that is, I like using a child that is abled differently instead of disabled child. What strategies can we take from that side, and maybe that are going to help us implement some of the things that are done in China in South Africa?
Yeah, I think that conversation cuts across all children, all learners.
Yes.
The challenge that we have in South Africa, I was having this discussion with somebody, and then they said to me, one of the problems that we're going to be confronted with is child-headed homes. Okay. Those are the realities that we have. That there are homes where the parents are absent. Now, how do you then make sure that this child is supported by a parent? But I think that even over and above that, we have got parents who are present but who are not active. Yes. So those are the parents that we should be targeting. What they do in China is that, I see here in South Africa, most of the time we just call them for their meetings. It's only the ex-model C schools when they've got big sports events, the parents are involved, Yeah. But with the majority of our schools in the townships, parents are not involved. And I think it's because the way we involve them is very dry. It's just for meetings and for electing them into the school governing body. Yeah. What was key, what I've learned there is that schools, they have sports teams for parents. So there's a soccer team of parents which will play against the next school. Okay. And they've got a league. So they play regularly. Okay. So their involvement at the school is not only at the formal, level, but also it has got a lot of recreational activities.
Okay.
Yeah. And what happens also over and above a school environment is that if you go to museums, our museums here are very dry. If you go to museums are children friendly.
Okay.
Yes. Children there are games that children play.
Okay.
And unintentionally, they learn very key concepts.
Okay.
Yeah. We went to a museum that is dealing with life sciences. And the children were pressing buttons, and then you see intestines. And then when they, and you'll see that this child has pressed the button and this thing is demonstrating the digestive system, excretion, all those things. That child does not realize that they are learning, and it is called the unseen curriculum or unintentional learning, When and they are accompanied by their parents. It is their parents, they are babies. I'm talking about toddlers.
Okay.
One day when they are at school, these things will be taught and they will remember.
They will remember.
Yes.
They will remember. Most importantly, it's an issue of it not being on paper.
Yes.
It's something that they have seen with their naked eye.
Yes.
But just the press of a button.
Yes.
And then you come back to the mind and say, oh, Kanena, I remember this and this happened at this point in time in my life.
Yes.
Oh.
Remember, one of the things that intimidates children at school, it's paper.
Yes.
Yes, it's paper. There is nothing that intimidates children like paper.
Yes.
Yeah. So the schools must be able to modernize. So now, when the child has had a visual and a practical experience before they meet the paper, by the time they see this thing on paper, they are no longer intimidated because they are confident.
Yes.
I know this thing.
I saw it.
I saw it. I touched it.
Okay. This trip must have been very exciting. More than it was educational, but it must have been exciting in the sense that whatever it is that you saw or what you learned from the other country, it's implemented here. Yeah. It's going to be one of the things that you strive for as an individual and as perhaps a member of the education system, right?
I'm a teacher, so what you are saying is 100% correct.
Yes.
When I was there, it was like I was a fish that was thrown into the river. You see? Yeah. It was overwhelming.
Okay.
Yeah, it was overwhelming. It was a learning experience all over. Even in places where I was not intending to learn. But what I see, it's exciting. Yes. Exciting. One of the things there is discipline. In South Africa, we are about 60 million people. And you can see the ill discipline, the corruption, the crime. In China, there are 1.4 billion people. But the discipline is amazing. One of my colleagues left her wallet on one of the benches at the mall when she was sitting and resting. It was brought to the hotel the following day.
Untouched.
Untouched. Everything intact.
It can never be
a country of 1.4 billion people. They have the same moral values. You see? And I said to you that this is a function of the family and of the school. There is no way you can have such consistency when it was not invested on the parents, on the family, and on the school.
So basically you say, in China, yes. But obey the principle they say, more than anything.
Yes.
Oh, this has been beautiful.
Yes.
It has been beautiful. Before we leave, if I should ask you this question, given an opportunity, would you leave South Africa to go stay in China and do what you are doing in South Africa in China?
To be honest, it will be pointless.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be pointless because I personally need to learn. And learning to implement in South Africa. I cannot learn to implement in China when already China is self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Look, China does not need anybody to do anything for it.
Yes.
That is my observation. Everything that is in China is enough to do everything that the Chinese people need.
It's South Africa that needs everybody to come and do everything.
South Africa has got brilliant people. And we have got brilliant leaders.
Yes.
That's why I said to you that the blueprint is there. We just need to resource the blueprint. The teachers are ready to implement. They must just be trained properly and they must just be resourced. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have that, I wouldn't mind going back to China or anywhere else in the world where I just go for a brief period of time to learn and to implement in South Africa.
Yes.
But I don't desire to leave South Africa and go and work elsewhere. You know, I think the work needs to be done here.
Okay. This has been beautiful.
Yeah.
It has been a beautiful piece that you have shared with us. Educational much, I must say. And I appreciate it.
Yes.
And I might not be the first one to interview you upon you coming back from China.
Yes.
But I'm glad that I had the opportunity to sit down with you on this table and have you pour into myself what you learned from China.
Yes.
From myself and my team, we want to thank you very much, and hopefully when we call you again some other time, if not that you really encourage, let this blazer that he is wearing encourage for so that a South African pupil or student should shine more than anything, should shine and be a better person. Thank you very much, Retlameleng.
No, I appreciate it.
From myself and my team, thank you very much.